Making your way in the world today takes everything you've got. Taking a break from all your worries sure would help a lot. Wouldn't you like to get away? Be glad there's one place in the world where everybody knows your name, and they're always glad you came. You wanna go where people know people are all the same. You wanna go where everybody knows your name.
So, I am really pleased to have him come forward and ask to speak. Several months ago, he asked me about becoming an ordained minister for CUL. And I gave him the package. It's not an easy package to accomplish, but speaking at CUL is one of those requirements. And I know we're all anxious to hear his story, and it's a beautiful story, it's an inspiring story, it's a funny story. We're going to leave here uplifted and inspired. Please welcome Larry Zavaglia to the podium.
I'd like to talk to you today. I'm a little bit nervous, but more excited because I've been waiting for this for a long time. I'm going to talk about my upbringing, where I'm at today, and hopefully you can relate to it. Okay? It is going to be just a Reader's Digest of my version of my story, my growing up, and it boils down to one word, and that is courage. And with that, I'd like to introduce my furry friend.
Courage. What makes the flag on the mast to wave? Courage. What makes the elephant charge his tusk in the misty mist or the dusky dusk? What makes the muskrat guard his musk? Courage. What makes the sphinx the seventh wonder? Courage. What makes the dawn come up like thunder? Courage. What makes the Hottentot so hot? What puts the ape in apricot? What have they got that I ain't got? Courage. You can say that again.
Huh? I love it. I love it. Yeah, just like the Cowardly Lion said, there's a lot to be said about, oh, I've got courage and I've got backbone and I've got strength. But when push comes to shove, huh? Okay? So, as Arvel said, new people. Do we have new people here? Okay, Chris. Yes, I met Chris earlier. Welcome. My wife and I have been members of CUL since its inception, a little over 2 years, okay? And I consider you folks my family. I've said that many Sundays, okay? And that's one of the reasons why I can peel the layers of my onion in front of you, okay? What it boiled down to was me finding, through the help of Reverend Arvel and Kimberly and just the fellowship here at CUL is mastering the courage to change, okay, and find the love and the humanity. First off, I was born a happy baby. Okay? Okay. How many here watched Call the Midwife? Okay. You've seen how many births? And all the babies are crying. In my case, I was laughing. Okay. I just remember being a happy, happy child. My parents adored me. I adored them. I just remember living in a household full of joy. My parents were good people. My dad was a Korean War veteran, Marine, and my mother came from Scranton. She was Irish-German. My dad, all Italian. And they both had their sides of the family. That's the people we have to deal with. We don't choose to deal with, but anyway, I lived down the Jersey Shore. I was a small child down there, and aside from, I should say, in addition to the good times that I remember and all the good memories, there was a side of dysfunction. And I'm going to share that with you. I can remember my mother, especially. My dad was not a drinker. My mother was a drinker. And this is not to, by any stretch, to bash Mom. She's in heaven now. And I know she's listening to me, and she's raising that eyebrow. Watch it, okay? But my mother and her sisters, she had 4 sisters, they liked to party. They were young, okay? They were in their early 20s. And I remember as a small child, a jug of Guinea red wine, what they called it. It was Italian wine. It was a gallon. There was lots of it. It was cheap. And the level kept going down and up and down and up. And my mom and her sisters loved to drink wine, play music. They introduced me to rock and roll. My mother loved rock and roll. And they danced. They got a little crazy by their standards. And we had a great time. And I say we because little Larry was there dancing away with them and enjoying the festivities. Okay? But then I do remember the darker side where my dad would come home from work. And I don't remember conversations, but I remember being in bed, fast asleep, and waking up to arguing, loud screaming at each other. And my mother would be the instigator. She was the one that was drunk, okay? And although there was never any violence, it was, for a small child, it was very scary. It left a indelible impact on me. And I remember telling my brothers, because my brothers, aside from being my brothers, they had no vices. They didn't smoke or drink. I was the one that picked up the vices. Okay? But I remember telling them, you guys didn't live through the arguing and all the bad times that we had. Okay? When I was growing up. And as I got older, we moved from the Jersey Shore. My parents separated for a while, for about a year, and we lived with my grandparents. And of course, my mother's sisters were all there, so the drinking continued, but it was on a different scale. There was nobody to answer to. They just partied all the time, and you know, I went to school, and I was getting a little bit older. And I remember one time, my mother used to drink during the day. She drank by herself. And she sent me to the store the grocery store. I think I was about 9 years old, and it was in the middle of the winter in New Jersey, and I had these bundles of groceries, and I remember dropping a dozen eggs, and got into the house, and 3 of them had broken. And Mom had spotted that, and she absolutely saw red, okay? And so she started chasing me around the house. Now, I could have stood there and taken my licks, but I ran away. And I was hiding. I would go under the bed, and she was trying to chase me and find me with the remaining eggs that were in the dozen, and she was throwing them at me, okay? And I'm ducking, and the eggs are splatting on the wall, and she went through the whole dozen, okay? And what infuriated her was I was laughing so hard because I thought, you missed me, okay? So she was drunk, and she got angrier and angrier, and we talked about that till the day she died, and she said, "You know how tired I am of hearing that story?" I said, "Oh, Mom, you'll never forget the eggs." So, and when we lived down the shore, we also had barbecues, keg parties, okay? And there was a lot of beer. And we lived in a neighborhood where they were partiers, so there was alcohol all around. And then I got to meet my mother's side of the family, which were Irish and German. And it was a cultural thing that for breakfast, I'm not kidding you, they were hungover, so they always had a hair of the dog, okay? And as young as I was, I thought this doesn't make too much sense to have alcohol, okay? But it sparked them into their day, okay? It was taking over where they left off the night before, all right? And later as an adult, I remember being at a wedding with all these relatives, and the amount of liquor that was poured, it was unbelievable, okay? So as a teenager, we moved to Bayonne, New Jersey, and that's where I had my formative puberty years, I call it. And that's where I started going to Catholic school, and I started to really feel the energy of the Lord, okay? I loved to, on Saturdays, we used to go to confession. Sunday, I didn't like going to Mass because I wanted to sleep in, but on Saturdays, we would go to confession, and I found great comfort in reading the Psalms, okay? And I would sometimes sit there by myself reading page after page of the Psalms. And growing up, when I needed a dose of comfort, I would instinctively go to the Psalms. So here we are in Bayonne, and I'm in that puberty age, and there was house parties and barbecues, and I was old enough, with the help of my friends, because we were all curious, well, what does beer really taste like? Okay, so that's where it all started. We were 11, 12 years old, and we would sneak drinks, okay? Finish what wasn't left, steal a cocktail, things like that. And then, as we got older, freshmen in high school, we got a fella that would get us wine, cheap wine, and we would do the doo-wop thing. We would sing on the corner, pass in a bottle of wine, and I thought, man, life is good. This is cool, okay? Yeah, who needs Woodstock? We got it right here, you know? This is where it's at. And it just was such a happy time for me, because it was a social thing. It was, drinking was a social thing with my friends. They were all doing it, and we were just, we were Goombas, you know? So, it carried on into my high school years. And mind you, we're all underage, but we never, ever had a problem getting alcohol. There was always a way to get it, okay? And I remember the first time I ever got drunk, I was 14 years old, and we were drinking Southern comfort. Now, we went from cheap wine and beer to a hard liquor, okay, and drank it and drank it and drank it, and I got snockered. I came home, and I remember trying to talk to my mother, and my words were slurring. We weren't doing anything, Mom. And I thought to myself, oh my God, what happened to my mouth? Okay? And my mother looked at me, and where were you? She hit the ceiling, okay? So I remember the conversation she had with my father, because that was one of the things my father regretted was, I work all day. I come home, and I get to hear all the crap from your mother about what you boys are doing. Can you have a day where you behave and I can come home and be happy? So I heard the conversation that my parents had about me being drunk. And mind you, that was a Saturday that we drank it. I had to go to church on Sunday. And my mother had said, it could be worse. He could be on drugs. She was accepting it, okay? And I just remember that was my ticket for, I can do it again, all right? But I went to church that Sunday, and I got so sick. And I remember just upchucking in my pew and seeing all my neighbors and in slow motion just running out of that church. Oh, I was so sick, okay? And I do remember saying, God, I'll never drink again, okay? So, to make a long story short, the one thing that I used to hate was when people were telling me drinking stories, okay? All right, so you drank, you got drunk and sick. Okay? For me, it was a time where a place to go. It was my safe haven. When I was a bartender, which when I started bartending, I thought, I am in my element. The best bartenders are the best drinkers, okay? And this will be my life. I know how to drink, and I will serve people. This will be my profession. I will make a living out of this. And I was a very, very good bartender, okay? But I came up with the philosophy pretty early that people drink when they're happy and they drink when they're sad, okay? And for me, I used it as an excuse for everything. If I was happy, I wanted to be happy. I would want to make my life Irish, as they say. Have a cup of coffee, let's make it Irish, I wanted to make it happier. If I was sad, it was a great way to say, I know how to feel better, okay? I was self-medicating. I was really using this tool in my toolbox for everything, okay? And as mechanics know, you can't use one tool for everything. Well, over the years, I honestly developed this relationship with alcohol, with booze. And I remember, it was one of my drunken times, where I visualized, just like in, how many saw A Beautiful Mind? Okay, remember he had a different sickness, but these figures, these voices that he would talk to, okay? And I pictured in my mind that this friend, this alcohol, was a beautiful woman, and she would seduce me. And I wanted to be seduced, okay? So it was easy for me to go to this beautiful woman, this friend. And the years went by, and the years went by, and I began to get very good at covering my badness, because I wasn't a nasty drunk. I became very amicable, all right? I wanted to have a good time, all right? I went from this is what I wanted to be, okay, when I took that drink, and then this is what I turned out to be. That's my picture, actually, really. Okay? It got ugly. It got very ugly. And even if I had the facade in front of all my friends and my family that I was in control, that's what I was facing on the inside. Okay? It got to be where, on the tipping point of, I don't like this. Why do I do this? Okay, can't I go back and to the first drink and feel the spirits? Okay? But the addictive personality is, I want to maintain that. I want to maintain that. So you keep going and keep going. And as a bartender, I saw it. I saw it all the time. A drink, and people would just change, and you didn't know which way they were going to change. They either get very happy and talky, and, I was a good psychologist at the bar, okay? Quick with a joke and to light up your smoke, okay, like the song says. But I saw myself as getting ugly, and I didn't like it. But I would quit for a while and say, well, because I have control of this. And that's what it was trying to control this person, this figure that I created, okay? And it worked for a little while. But then I would fall right back into this friend started to become an annoyance. And it's true when you hear somebody's story over and over. With some people, you think to yourself, I could take 5 minutes of that and then I want them to leave. That's the way alcohol was with me, was you're starting to annoy me, but I need you here. Don't go away. I'm not chasing you away. You're just starting to annoy me. And I can't tell you, honestly, the last time that I had a drink, because I don't remember. But it was well over a year ago. And I just remember thinking to myself, this has got to stop. The only way I can gain control of this is to look at it differently, to change my thought on how I approach my friend. And there's a line from Mumford & Sons. The song is called Little Lion Man. And I remember hearing it in the car, and I was listening to it, and I was actually singing with it and screaming it. And the words go, "It was not your fault, but mine. And it was your heart on the line. I really effed it up this time. Didn't I, my dear? Tremble for yourself, my man. You know that you have seen this all before. Tremble, little lion man. You'll never settle any of your scores. Your grace is wasted in your face. Your boldness stands alone among the wreck. Now learn from your mother, or else spend your days biting your own neck." And it hit me between the eyes like, take stock of yourself, look in the mirror, because I was looking in the mirror and not liking who I saw. And when I finally made the decision that my life is going to change, either that or I'm going to die. They say that you have to hit rock bottom before you can start making your way up. Well, I was on the last rung of that ladder before I fell into the lava pit. And I think I was too scared to actually jump into the pit, and thought to myself, I've got to start climbing and get out of this. So it brought me back to searching for God, for that spirit in the universe. And many times I would get drunk and I would scream at God, "Why aren't you hearing my prayers? I'm asking you for help." So, just like I made that little friend of alcohol, that gorgeous woman, God was looking at me. He was like a stranger on the bus and said, "I'm going to be riding this bus whether you're driving it or not. I hear your prayers, okay? But you got to get real with yourself, all right? Cut the BS and start by looking in the mirror and saying, I realize who I am, and I'm willing to change. I'll be here for you. And that was the conversation I had with God. And just like what Arvel said about having strength and living this lifetime, well, okay, I'm paying karma for some past lifetime, but I have paid enough, and I've got some good years left. And this was the gift that God gave me. Okay? I gave God a free ride on my bus, and He's reciprocating by giving me my life back. Wow. That's a different thought. Okay? So I started to think about how enthusiastic I was about little things, how I was a happy person. I was a happy child. Damn it, I came out of the womb laughing and giggling and couldn't wait to live. Okay? This was not the way to do it with these vices. So here I am. I retired in May. It'll be 4 years. And I struggled through functionally my bus driving job. Now, I had a commercial license. I was still drinking, but I was very careful not to drink and drive, and even with a hangover. If I knew I was out or up too late drinking, I'm not putting all those people in jeopardy. I will call in sick. And I did, okay? But I struggled through that career of mine knowing that I want to live to retire, okay, and be a teenager. Okay? So even after I retired, I was still struggling with this this condition that I had, all right, this struggle. And I had an argument with a good friend of mine, an argument like I'd never had before, where my adrenaline went through the roof. My blood pressure must have been off the charts. And I can feel that I had never gotten that angry before. And I came home, and I was sitting watching TV, and I thought I had something in my eye, and I kept rubbing it and rubbing it, still upset. And I went up to the bedroom. I told Jan I was going to lay down, and I saw 2 beds. And I said, something's happened here. We went to the ER. I thought I was having a stroke, okay? They admitted me. They did an MRI, and they had told me that there's no stroke, okay? What did happen was when I got that angry, a blood vessel that was feeding my optic nerve had constricted, and the blood flow wasn't there. So every time I would look to my left, I would see double, and then I would go and I would see okay on the right. So what I had to do was I wore a prism on my eyeglasses that would set me where I can drive. I said, geez, my whole career, 15 years of driving the bus, now I want to drive my convertible, and I can't drive because I can't see, okay? So I put the prism on, and I was okay to drive. I'd take it off, and I was cross-eyed again, okay? But the reason I tell you that is, and the doctor had said, 3 months, you'll be fine. It'll start to go back. It'll come back to normal. As that vessel eases up, time is what you need, okay? Sure enough, it did go back. But I said to myself, with conviction like I never had before, I said, I am never going to let anyone get me that angry again, okay? I lost control, not Italian ballistic, throw things all over the place and, crazy, but just anger. And I vowed I would never let anybody do that to me again. So when I looked in the mirror after I had these many conversations with God, I said, now I know. I will never allow myself to be put in that position again, because I control it. And that gorgeous woman that I created, she is ugly. You know, I don't know if anybody's ever heard that song. At 2 o'clock, I went home with a 10. And at 10 o'clock, I woke up with a 2. Okay? Yeah, she got, ooh. Yeah, it's been a nice ride. Thank you very much. But rather than hate her, I just show her to the door. That's how, through the men's group and dealing with the shadows, I realize it's there. I'm not denying it. I'm taking responsibility for it and all accountability. But there's the door. Okay? It's cold outside, and I hope you freeze your butt off. Okay? And that's how I got it. But my word to you today, and I'll finish with this, is just like Gandhi said, be the change you wish to see in the world. Okay? It all starts here. And God is listening to you. Okay? The power of the universe is there. All right? He may be sitting there on the corner just waiting for the right time, but he's got his eye on you. He heard your prayer, and when you want it enough, it'll be there. Fred Rogers, Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, said, the greatest gift you can give yourself is your honesty. Aho. Aho. Give yourself your honesty. Thank you. I love you all. You are my family, my friends.